the strategy. How do I say this? Scrying's absurd in this game. Scrying's actually absurd. And let me think about this for 1 second. So, the price of removing a card from your deck is extremely high in this game. If you have an upgraded Third Eye, which is a common, you get Scry 5 for 1 energy. For 1 energy, you can look at 5 random cards in your deck. You don't get to choose what they are, but you get to look at 5 of them. And you can say, you know what? I remove these cards from my deck. And it's functionally removing these cards from your deck because the majority of these games, these combats, only last, let's say, 4 or 5 turns. You might not even get a chance to redraw those cards. So very, very often, Scry 5 is functionally look at 5 cards, remove them from your deck for 1 energy. And then you can have something like Foresight where you keep doing this. There's a phrase used, stacking your deck, when you talk about stacking a library of cards, or a deck of cards. That means you are placing the cards in the order that you want them to. You can do this in like a game of poker, where you stack the deck such that when you deal out to 7 people, every 7th card gives you like a royal flush. That's stacking the deck. Scrying is stacking the deck. It's not as absurd as like literally placing it in the exact order, but every turn, if you scry 3, you are increasing the quality of the cards you draw by more than 0%. And it's usually maybe like 30%, let's say you're increasing the quality on average. But sometimes you increase the quality of your draw by like 70. I know anyone who's played Spire, you've had a turn where you're getting attacked for a lot, and you draw no defensive cards. Imagine you could take 3 of the cards in that hand and just replace them with any 3 random cards in your draw pile. You would take that in an instant. You can do that every turn. The problem with Scry, and I've talked about this before, I'm going to talk about this for a second. The problem with Scry is that it is a thing called the word is Uber. The alternative to Uber being cabs. These are phrases that come from this podcast, which is a Magic the Gathering centric podcast. And I don't know if I'm going to find exactly what I want here. I've never been on this website before. Can I just search your episodes easily? There is a search here. But they use a term called cabs. Cabs theory. And I've talked about it before. And Uber theory was kind of born out of cabs theory. Cabs stands for cards affecting the board state. Cards affecting the board state would include something like Conclude. Conclude affects the board state. It deals 12 damage to every enemy on the board. The board is now different when you play Conclude, and it's drastically different. You play something like Wallop. You deal 9 damage to a target, and you are now defending for 9. You're taking less damage, you're dealing more damage. The board state changes. If you play Foresight, or Worship, or Tranquility, Meditate, you play these cards, and you put a power on the board, and this card literally says, at the start of your turn, scry 3. So when you play this card, the board state goes unmoved, completely. Nothing happens to the board. You're taking as much damage as you were, you're dealing as much damage as you were, and you're now down 1 energy. It does not affect the board state, and that's a problem, because the turn you're playing right now is always more important than the turns later. Which means you can't just play 10 foresights in your deck and expect to win. As powerful as Scrying is, this is the downside. It's a long-term benefit as opposed to a short-term. Now, to come back to what I was saying here, Uber theory is really a joke by the other host on this podcast, Luis Scott Vargas. Now, Luis Scott Vargas is arguably the best modern Magic player. There's plenty of competition for that, but just arguably, he really is one of the best Magic players ever. Well, he is one of the best Magic players ever. Is he the best right now? There's competition. But anyway, he made up Uber theory as a joke, and he called it ultimate big endgame ramp theory. That's what he called it, which is a big joke. Ramp being gaining lots of energy to play more expensive cards sooner. But the practical idea behind Uber theory is, it's a little bit easier to explain in Magic, but I think I can explain it in Slay the Spire terms. You want to build your deck. Now, let me just preface this really quick. In Magic, it's a lot more, this idea is more important because you're playing against another player on an even playing field. You have access to all the same cards and all this stuff. So Uber is a little bit more practical in that sense, because when you play a game of Magic, one of the ideas you can take with you in your head is, if you go into a game with your deck of cards and you go into the game with the opponent's deck of cards, if you just flip the decks over and play out every card, like you simulate, basically like simulating a game, but both decks get their optimal strategy. Play out, they have all the resources, the all energy. You flip over the cards. By sheer power alone, which deck will win? If you just flip them over and say, play out every single card right now, which deck overwhelms the other one? And thinking about it in this way can help you realize, you know what? I don't have full control over this game. This is a game of variance. If I flip over my deck, but I'm front-loading my deck with just garbage, like I'm playing follow-up. I'm spending 1 energy to deal 7 damage in a single turn. If I ever want to do 7 damage again, it costs me another energy. Whereas something like, even just Wreath of Flame. If I play Wreath of Flame on a turn where Conclude is in, where I play Conclude against 3 enemies, Wreath of Flame for 1 energy is dealing 24 damage. That's over 3 times the work of follow-up. Or you can go even bigger than that and take the power cards, which I have no power cards except for Foresight, so I'll just use Foresight. For 1 energy, next turn you scry 3, sure. But over an infinite timescale, like let's say the game lasts 10 turns, for 1 energy, you're scrying 30. This is similar to removing that many cards, improving that many draws. Your quality of your draws over the entire game is absurdly increased for 1 energy, or you could deal 7 damage. 7 damage looks absurdly pathetic next to scrying 30, which at that point is just literally stacking your deck. Literally, I have 28 cards in my deck. Like, scrying 30 over a long period of time is an insane amount of value for 1 energy. You get that value for 1 energy. So Uber theory is the idea that you don't have control over the game, so you want to know that if this game goes forever, and you don't have control over how long the game goes, and you're just stuck in a stalemate, you want to know that at the end of the day, your strongest cards are better than your opponent's strongest cards. You see that conceptually, but last Watcher I played, I never knew what to remove. I just kept thinking I might need this next turn, because I don't know what will happen next turn. So how do you prepare for variance? One of the best ways to prepare for variance is scry. Because, especially with a card like Foresight, by the time you're scrying, you will always get to see the enemy's intention for that turn. So another way to think about scry to help you kind of solve this is draw actually has two effects to it. Draw is two different effects. Draw is the obvious effect, which is adding cards to your hand. The other effect draw has is seeing more cards in your deck. Every turn of Slay the Spire, you add 5 cards to your hands, but you also see those 5 cards in your deck. Scry doesn't add cards to your hand. You still only add 5 cards to your hand with Foresight, but you see 8 cards. And now, all of a sudden, you're not just adding 5 random cards, you're adding 5 cards with a subset of them being chosen by you. There's cards in the colorless portion of this game that you can search for cards in your library and just add them to your deck. Those cards are powerful because you're not just drawing a random card and it might be useless because you're not getting attacked this turn and you just drew defend or whatever. But you can pick out the exact card, you can pick out the best card for you right now. Foresight gives you that kind of power. So as far as preparing, let me see your question again. I never knew what to remove. Now when you say remove, you mean remove with Scry, I assume? Because if you're playing, because scrying only affects your current turn as well. You'll scry every turn, that's why it adds up to be powerful. You don't mean Foresight. You just mean something like Third Eye then? Yeah, so for Third Eye, oh I see, I'm sorry. Yeah, so you are preparing to improve your draw next turn. Something that I habitually do, a heuristic I have, oh my god, I don't have strikes or defense in my deck. Anyway. Every deck has strikes and defense, except Pandora's Box decks. But whenever you scry, you can almost immediately remove strikes and defense. Strikes and defense by design are the weakest cards in your deck. So you can assume drawing a random card will be more valuable than a strike or a defense. And the other thing about this game is that you say you don't know what their intention is next turn, but you can know. And that's something that you need to learn as you play this game, is when you're fighting, I'll just pull this up again. I pulled this up earlier in the stream. I have this document open right now because I was trying to figure out how much damage Bear does. So Bear, he has this artificial intelligence that is on turn 1, he always starts with Bear Hug and then alternates between Lunge and Maul. Lunge and Maul are terms that the game doesn't show you in-game, but they're these. So when I see him dealing 20 damage, I can say, oh, next turn he's going to deal 10 and block 9. And then after that, he's going to do 20. And then this is his AI. I mean, you could call it hacks, but as you play the game, and every time you run into Bear, you're going to see him. He's going to Maul and then Lunge and Maul and Lunge. You're going to see him do this sequence. You'll learn this eventually anyway, just through experience. One of the easiest examples of this is the boss Automaton, Bronze Automaton. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves. He has 5 moves. But you know what? His artificial intelligence, he has a 75% chance of using stasis until it has been used. So stasis is... oh no. Oh, these are orbs. Oh no. Sorry, those are bronze orbs. Bronze Automaton, sorry. Bronze Automaton has a deterministic order. It says it right here. He uses the word deterministic. He uses spawn orbs, which creates the minions. That's always what he does on turn 1. He creates 2 minions, summons 2 bronze orbs. And then he cycles in the order of flail, boost, hyper beam, stunned. And then he does it again. And Ascension 19 uses boost instead of stunned? That's not true. He's always stunned. I need to look at that. But yeah, this is what he does. He flails, boost, flail, boost, hyper beam. And flail is a damage, then he gains strength and block, then he damages again, and then he gains strength and block, and then he hyper beams. I feel like this is like playing with a walkthrough, which is always less fun for me unless I'm trying to 100% after any percenting the game. So the reason I pulled this up is not just because is not just to show you that I'm cheating or trying to gain information this way. Let me explain this slightly differently by saying I figured out on my own that Bronze Automaton, his pattern goes attack is a damage attack, and then it's a non-damaging attack, then it's a damage attack, then it's a non-damaging attack, then it's hyper beam, and then it's stunned. He does that all the time, and it's deterministic, and it's a long fight, so you can see the pattern. I figured that much out on my own. What the exact numbers are, I didn't really know, but I did know that he always summons on turn 1, and then he attacks me. He does a non-damaging thing, then a damaging thing, then a non-damaging thing, then a damaging thing, then a non-damaging thing, then a damaging thing. And this is how the automaton works. He swaps between not dealing damage and dealing damage. And the dealing damage changes between flail and hyper beam every other 3 turns, I think it would be described as. What's up, Popperton? Welcome back. So this much I figured out on my own. He does the flail boost, hyper beam, stunned. Flail boost, hyper beam, stunned. Flail boost, hyper beam. And he'll do this forever. He'll just do this forever. And you don't need to pull this up to learn that. It's just what he does. You can learn it. You were getting frustrated with this game, but slowly figured out the attacks and how to play against them. You have to. Yeah, and you don't have to use any guides. You will figure it out. Now, and it's also important to realize that not every monster is designed this way. There is variance built into the AI. You're going to have to sit on this idea for a while. Let me just show you one more thing. One more example. Time Eater, has this whole paragraph. But just the first 2 lines here. He always uses haste once, immediately after reaching below 50%. That's easy to figure out. After he goes below 50%, he heals. That's all that means. He only ever uses haste the one time to heal. But otherwise, his pattern is approximately a 20% chance of doing something, doing a ripple, a 45% chance of doing a head slam, a 35% chance of doing reverberate or whatever it is. And then they can't be used twice in a row, can't be used 3 times in a row. His AI, learning this specific AI, much less helpful. Much less helpful against Time Eater. Against Time Eater, you just have to work with the best that you can, expecting that he's probably going to do damage, because 2 of the 3 attacks he has deal damage. But occasionally he won't, so hopefully he won't. But you can expect to have to block every turn, because he often enough attacks. As far as specifics, you can't know. It's literally in his AI that it's randomized. And then someone like Hexaghost. Hexaghost, even in his animation, shows you every 6 turn, I'm going to deal... where is it? This attack. Whatever you want to call this attack here. Or is it Divider? What is this? Oh, that's the notes. Okay. Yeah, every 6 turns, he does Divider. Starting on turn 2. That's easy to figure out because it's literally animated into his character where he ticks down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, big attack. Scry is more useful if you know this information, but you can still scry away the weakest cards. Yes, it's commonly understood that Scry is better the more you know about the game. This happens in Magic the Gathering all the time, where the hardest to play decks with the most decision points and the most minute information to work with, these decks are best played with by the best players. The better player you are, the more value you get out of it, because the less you know and the less good you are at the game, you can't use this information as well. Right. start by just scrying away the weakest cards. That's what I do. That's what I do because you don't have enough information all the time, unless you want to memorize it and work on it. But for a starting point, and the other thing you can start scrying into is like synergies. So I'm going to put this away for a second and actually start playing the game again. But also, you want to scry into synergies. Like when I have Wallop, Wallop gives me block equal to the damage I do. If I see Wallop in my next hand, or in my scry pile, I might want to try and find Wreath of Flame or Crush Joints with it to make Wallop deal more damage, or Eruption. But if I see, like, you know, Follow Up, Flurry of Blows, and Wish, it's like, no, I need Wallop plus one of my synergistic cards with it. So I might take Wallop and scry away the rest to try and put those combos together. Similarly, this is why Retain is so powerful, because you can manipulate the... This is all about manipulating variance. Whenever you play a card game, you have two opponents. Your literal opponent and variance. And how you compete against variance, it's difficult, but you do the best you can. Yes, comboing is tricky, and comboing is all about manipulating variance, using card draw, scrying, increasing your hand size, just manipulating the game to work in your favor. And the Watcher has a lot of synergy between her cards. There's a lot of synergies. Even just like Nirvana says the word whenever you scry gain 3 block. So all of a sudden you want to draw your third eyes more often. And that just might mean scrying away every card that isn't third eye. Just so you draw third eyes more often. You can just scry away 5 random cards just because they're not third eye. Just so you can gain more block on average, if that's your plan, if that's your strategy, if it's worth it to you. Like, I might want to go hard on Divinity, so I'm going to scry away everything that isn't Prey, because now I'm pushing those cards into my discard pile, and I'll redraw my Prey sooner. Even if it's not in my next hand, at least I'll redraw it sooner. Alright, now that I've completely forgotten how to play my deck. You took a boss relic start, you got the one where you can't see enemy intent, you still won. Yeah, you just to anticipating enemies without a guide, yeah. There's a relic, a boss relic that you can get that hides enemy intents forever. And I've won a run with that as well. It's hard, and it's the kind of thing that'll scare you off for your first 200 hours of gameplay. It will, every time. And then I won a run with it, and it was great, and then I tried it again, and I lost miserably. Because not all the enemy intents are predictable. Some of them are variants, and if you predict those wrong, rest in peace, GG, good run, another try. What am I doing here? Am I taking Sanctity or max HP? I have a Merchant around the corner, what's going on? Oh, I was trying to decide if I want more card draw in my deck. My card draw is Empty Mind, I have a bunch of Scrying, I have 2 Meditates. It does add block to my deck, and I don't want to remove any cards, so. Oh, that was a fun tangent. Anyone learn anything? I think I did. I can take a Prostrate and a Waffle here. That's pretty good. I can't also take Bronze Scales, which is unfortunate, because that would be good against the Heart. Although I probably have the Heart fight solved. I could just not take Prostrate, actually. I don't think I need it. What am I playing? Collector? Yeah, let's just solve the Heart fight a little bit right now. So, big brain moment, exactly. Tiger, I want to point out, I just took Bronze Scales because I said this will help me solve the Heart fight. Even just something as simple as that kind of decision. Like, it's Act 2, and I made a choice based solely on the Act 4 fight. But it's because, having played the Heart before, I know the Heart has an attack that hits me 15 times in one turn. So I really want Bronze Scales, because this is going to do 45 damage for free against the Heart every 3 turns. 48 damage, technically. So, these are the kinds of decisions you'll start making once you get used to what to expect from the game. You have to be prepared. Being prepared is everything for this game, because it affects every decision point, including buying a relic in Act 2 for an Act 4 fight. You never follow a guide. You love this game because you can't follow a straight guide. You have to adapt and react. See, I don't mind using the guide because there's so much information that, like, I could learn it through experience, but I've already put 300 hours into this game. I don't fight Bear, Pointy, and Romeo enough. Like, I've fought them maybe 10 times ever. There's no way I'm gonna memorize their AI on top of every other enemy's AI. So I don't mind using a guide just to kind of fill in the lines of the last few enemies that are on the outskirts of my potential memory. Well, I don't need to heal. Oh wow, I have 5 upgrades left in my deck? Toxic Egg's been putting in work. Holy crap. I hardly need to upgrade anything. I guess I'll upgrade Foresight. Could upgrade Wallop. Man, I wasn't expecting to have such a small decision to make. I guess I will. I could also just take the key now. I'm just gonna take the key now. This is pretty cozy. Go insane. Sanctity's good. I needed to have played a skill. Oh man, finally the coffee's working. Your favorite games are games that have strategy, tactics combined. There are some games that strategy from the beginning is key, or overall strategy is mostly the same throughout the game. The interesting thing about this game is that it forces you to have to make decisions that benefit you now, and if you do that too much, you lose later. So you are constantly fighting this balance between short-term and long-term benefits, and it's so freaking hard. Yeah, and there's so much variance in the game that you constantly have to adapt to the situation. It's hard to make just a strictly powerful deck that can overcome anything, because you might not be able to build it just because you need short-term strategy. Also, there's a snake on this guy's armor, like carved into it. Centurion. And his eyes are weird? Huh. Yeah, some games are solely short-term. Some games are solely long-term strategizing. This game is both. And you can like whatever you want. Ooh. I want to play all these cards. I can play Dark Shackles. I guess I'm not playing Battle Hymn or Nirvana because I want to play Wish this turn, and I also want to play Prey. Oh, so many things I want to do. Take one. Knight of Snecko the Great? Maybe. I wonder if it is a Snecko. It'd be a little weird if it were, but I could believe it. I can be Divinity this turn. That's not helpful. I guess I'll retain Worship and do that later. Let's enter Calm. Flurry of Blows again. Third Eye. Yeah, alright, so I'm making a scry decision here. I'm going to talk through how I do this. So I'm going to scry 5 in preparation for next turn. I'm not even thinking about what these guys are doing, honestly, next turn. I am aware that this buff here is going to be a strength increase, and next turn he's pretty likely to heal. So this guy, he's attacking this turn, which means I'm going to give him 50-50 odds to attack or not attack next turn. That's all I know. I sort of don't care about any of that, though. What I'm looking at here is I don't want to draw a Sender's Bane. It just makes my hand worse. Foresight, it's a little bit later in the combat now, so I might not want to draw that next turn, because I'm going to use Worship. So I don't want to be in Divinity the turn I have to play a do-nothing power. I want to be in Divinity the turn I'm playing things that affect the board state. which means I want to draw cards, which means I want energy, which means I want Deus Ex Machina. But if I'm going to get Deus Ex Machina, I need to make sure I'm not retaining too much. Eruption doesn't have good synergy with Divinity. So seeing how bad these cards are for being in Divinity next turn, I might hold off Divinity until the turn after. And just take Deus Ex Machina and block next turn. I would probably take Eruption regardless, because I have Flurry of where is it? Flurry of Blows going on in my discard pile. So Eruption will still get me a lot of value and Empty Body to block. So I don't think I'm going to Foresight this game. Ascender's Bane is cursed, just get rid of it. Scry is great with curses. Yeah, so I'll take these 3 cards. I'll have a bunch of cards retained. I'll draw 2 additional cards. I'll have a lot of energy. This should be good. Dragon Slayers is wear dragons on the armor. Is Centurion a Snecko Slayer? That'd be pretty cool. Why are you doing 18 damage to me? Stop dealing 18 damage to me. Stop that. Go away. There. So this is going to be a buff now? Yeah, this is going to be a heal. He's not even attacking me this turn. Easy fight. Let's use a miracle. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 8 cards in my hands. So I'm going to empty mine now. No, use a miracle because I'm about to draw Flurry of Blows again. There we go. I can crush joints this guy. Flurry of Blows. Eruption. Flurry of Blows. Kill him with... I guess I'll kill him with Wallop. Flurry blows you. Yeah. This fight's very over. Did I play Wish yet? I think so. Yes, okay, good. So I can end the fight this turn? With, nothing? Cool. Can I end the fight with, Flurry of Blows? I can. That's funny. Sweet. I didn't have to do that, but I was able... There's no reason to extend the fight. I don't need Liquid Bronze? Yeah, I think I'll take the Dex Potion. Save me some health. I don't think I need energy from Collect. I certainly don't need to retain a Protect. I don't need damage from Carve Reality, so I can finally take 2 max HP. Yay. And now I'm just running out of options at campsites.